Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of What's on Your Mind with Josh Kozuch. Now, for those of you that follow me on Instagram and Twitter, this past week I've posted every single day about a different type of thinking trap. Now, you might have been wondering to yourself, well, what is a thinking trap? Why is he continuing to post on thinking traps? What is this all about? Where are we going with this? Well, that's what today is for. So in today's episode of What's on Your Mind, I want to talk a little bit further about those thinking traps. Now, what are thinking traps? Well, thinking traps are actually discovered by Dr. Reivich's work up at Penn. And she blends two different research theories. The first is from Dr. Marty Seligman, where he talks about explanatory style, which is basically, why do we do the things that we do, either good or bad? What's the reasoning behind it? And then also the work from Dr. Burns, and he talks about cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are exaggerated or irrational thought patterns that we have. So she blends these two together and comes up with this idea of thinking traps. What is a thinking trap? Well, a thinking trap is basically just what are habits that our thoughts fall into when we're in situations? What are some typical things? Where does our mind go when we're faced with adversity or difficult situations, or just when our mind goes into autopilot? What types of traps do we happen to always fall into? And there's a bunch of different types of traps, but the 5 that really she focuses on in her resiliency course are mind reading, me, them, catastrophizing, and also helplessness. Now, I'm not going to go through and explain every single one. You guys can go out, check out my IG or Twitter account. I have posted what it is, the effects of it, and then also how you get out of it. But I do want to explain it a little bit more of scenarios that you can see those types of things. Now, mind reading is something that it's probably the biggest thinking trap that I fall into, and it's when you think that somebody's supposed to know what you're thinking, or you think you already know what they're thinking. So let me give you an example. So say you're with your significant other, and you guys are talking, and you just get frustrated because you expect them to already know what you're gonna do, or you expect them to know what you're gonna say, or you think that you know what they're gonna do or what they're gonna say. This is a trap that often we fall into with the people that we're closest to, just because we've spent so much time with them that we think that they're just supposed to know. I know I'm guilty of this, and I'm sure there's people out there who would say, yes, Josh, that's probably your biggest thinking trap. But that's what mind reading is about. The me thinking trap is when you're constantly blaming yourself for the things that happen to you, where everything is always my fault. Them, you blame others. Pretty self-explanatory, right? You're always blaming somebody else for the stuff that happens to you. Catastrophizing is when you're looking at the absolute worst case scenario of things. Just, oh, woe is me. This is just the way it's going to be. Like, everything's going to suck. Everything's bad. The world is ending, so on and so forth. And then the helplessness thinking trap is when you just say something like, that's just the way it is. They're the way they are. I'm the way I am. It's just never going to work. So those are the 5 thinking traps that we talk about today. And I really want you guys to consider just what are the thinking traps that you typically find yourself falling into. Maybe it's mind reading, maybe it's me, maybe it's them. And honestly, all of these thinking traps you could experience throughout the day, just depending on the situation that you go to. So my thought, what I want you guys to kind of chew on for the rest of today and moving forward is just bring awareness to what are the typical traps that you find yourself falling into. Would love to hear your comments below, any thoughts, feedback, suggestions, and just see where you're at. You guys feel free to go back through my Instagram and Twitter. You can check out how to overcome these thinking traps. Would also be happy to continue talking more about them with you. But just would really love for you guys to start being a little bit more aware of what are the typical thinking traps that you find yourself falling into. So thank you guys for jumping on today. I really appreciate your time, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks.